Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me once again as we look to the horizon. And today I got a pretty short vlog for you. I am going to take a look at my current writing project, and it's really all I have to talk about. I had a little bit of work done on a comic script I've been putting together, but I mailed it off hoping to hear back from my collaborators, and I haven't yet. So I can't really comment too much more about where that's going, other than to say I like the way it's shaping up and it's been fun to write, but a lot of storytelling is getting your audience reaction. I don't have that yet, so I can't say anything beyond that. I hope to get to page 90 of Burning Bright, and I made it to page 86. Now, that's still 11 pages, which is pretty good, considering my baseline is 10 pages a week. But I may just have to face the reality that about 10 pages handwritten a week is the most I can do on any one project at any one time. There is a phenomena of creative endurance, for lack of a better term. Every writer or artist or so forth can only focus on one creative project for a certain length of time before they need to kind of work on something else and recharge. And while that's true in the grand scheme of things, like maybe you can only write a novel for, say, a year or 2 years at a time, I find it's also true, at least for me and some other creators I've talked to, in the shorter term. We can only really focus in on a writing project for maybe an hour or two a day before we need to stop and look at something else, or at least for a couple hours a day, go out and get a walk, get in some exercise, clean up the house, cook something to eat, something like that, and then come back kind of refreshed. You cannot sprint the whole time. Sometimes you have to slow down to a walk and let your batteries recharge. And I have found that in general, I can do about a page and a half to 2 pages handwritten in a day with all my other obligations. Now, if I had more time in the day to alternate back and forth, like I can write while I'm on break at work, and then again when I come back and I eat lunch. But I could probably write for 15 or 20 minutes and then take a 10-minute break to get up and stretch, something like that, and then come back and write for another half an hour. If I had the luxury to do that more, I could probably get more accomplished. Unfortunately, with my current schedule, I just don't have a whole lot of chunks of time where I can do that. So I have to make do with very small bursts of writing during the day, and then a longer, maybe 45-minute to an hour session in the evening. And there's only so much I can accomplish during that time because I have to look back and forth and remind myself of details and look things up and do research. And, it all eats up time, unfortunately. So, yeah, 10 to 12 pages may be the most I can do in a week, which is not ideal, but it is still pretty productive, and I'm pretty satisfied with that. I may start trying to transcribe and edit this at some point in the next couple of weeks, because that does seem to activate a different part of the brain, at least for me, and I can do that for longer periods of time without needing a recharge. And if I can do some of the writing and redrafting while I'm still finishing the story, I think I can get ahead on it that way a little bit better. Also, that doesn't really, I've avoided doing that with a Roy Harper adventure because I was never 100% sure how I wanted the finales to those stories to play out. So I didn't want to start the redrafting process until I had that all worked out and at least in rough form down on paper. Now I think I can get away with that because I have had the end of Burning Bright in mind from the beginning. In fact, the end was the first part of the story, which is not always the way I write stories, nor is it the way I would always recommend writing a story. But when it's the way the story comes to me, that's how I write it. So I do have that idea already firmly in mind, and I have been very much so tailoring things to feed into that while still remaining consistent already. I don't think I will have to go back and do as much editing and revising as I did in something like, say, the Roy Harper Adventures to make sure that all plays out. Whereas, yeah, in a Roy Harper story, I very much tend to start with a general scenario and the characters and let that play out, and then go back and remold what I've already written to be consistent and sensible. Here, almost everything grew out of the kind of climax I wanted and the kind of lasting impact I wanted the story to leave. And that has given the characters a lot of very good, solid boundaries in the kinds of things I can allow them to do and the kinds of things I need to present insurmountable obstacles for, the kinds of things they need to rule out, or the kinds of things their personalities should just not allow them to do. And I know that sounds backwards given the way a lot of people think about writing these days, but I find it very convenient to have those restrictions already in place so I can be thinking about how I will make them play out and still be interesting and still reveal things about the characters in the world. Because you can definitely write that way. It's just a very different writing paradigm. And I have definitely enjoyed having the luxury of playing around in there as I was working on Burning Bright. But I wouldn't say everyone has to do it, and I am still hesitant to go back and start redrafting this when I still don't have the first draft completely finished. Because I do want to make sure that nothing suddenly creeps up in the last 20, 30 pages or so, or maybe 40 pages if it goes really long. That will force me to go back and seriously reevaluate something that I've already redrafted, which is, again, not something I'm too keen on. So I'm kind of waffling on that one. Certainly, I will keep you apprised, but in the meantime, that's how I'm thinking of it. Anyways, that's really all I have for you for the writing vlog today. I am starting to write essays that will run between the end of Night Train to Hardwick and whatever comes next. It has been interesting. I am not looking at specifics about writing so much in this series of essays as I am just looking at broad themes that I am seeing in current storytelling, which I find pretty negative. So it's definitely not been a fun series of essays to write, and I have to say a lot of bad things about other writers, which I don't always feel great about. But I think it's going to be necessary, and hopefully my readers will enjoy them. But I only have a couple of those ready so far, so I can't say a whole lot about them yet. Maybe I will. I think that my next writing vlog, I will try and talk a little bit about how I go about writing these essays and the things I'm thinking about. Maybe you'll find that interesting as well. I know I primarily talk about fiction projects, but I do find the writing of general prose to be very interesting as well. In fact, most of my education was in journalism and professional communication, so I'm really pretty well equipped to think about these kind of topics, and then I have refined that into what I think is a pretty good prose writing for nonfiction. Not to toot my own horn, but hey, I like doing it. I think the product generally comes out pretty well. So maybe I'll talk about that next week, because I suspect I will just have you another status update on Burning Bright to bring you, and it is nice to have something else to talk about for a little bit. Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. There is a like button and a subscribe button down below. Let me know what you think about revising a work before it's finished, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea. Maybe I'll take that into account as I make my decision on this one. I'll talk to you later.